What? Are you doing season 2 of that stupid show?
Honey, where are you going?
Where are you going?
Again? Just where are you going?
Where are you going? You're not going to the bar again, are you?
You like hanging out, drinking beer at the bar, talking sports? Come on out and join us weekly. Guys at the Bar Talking Sports, your podcast for just that. Hanging out, drinking some beer, talking sports. What's up, everybody? This is your boy Hanger coming to you in a solo episode. This is the first solo episode I've done on a Thursday, and it's not for lack of hanging at a bar by any means. It's for my real world work, which is my job. So I had to go out of town. I'm going to be out of town next week as well, so I'm going to throw together some solo shows for the next couple weeks just to make sure that we are consistent, because the one thing I have heard about doing a podcast is that consistency is key. The other thing is quality, though, and doing a solo show, I've never had to do that before, besides those shows I'm doing for the weekly recaps of the college football and also for NFL football. I'm trying to keep those down to 10 minutes. And I'm not going to keep this one very long either. Just wanted to get a show out there and get some consistency going so that the listeners that are listening can have some excellent content at least 3 times a week like we've been doing. Now, just wanted to start the show off with a little shout out to the Boston Red Sox. They did end up getting into the playoffs on a little one game wild card to see who's going to get in. They ended up beating the Yankees. I believe it was 6-2 the other night, and I am super happy about that, being a Red Sox fan myself. I'll go over some of the stats go over later on once we have my girl Cheeks around. We'll go ahead and go over some of the baseball stuff as well. That'll be in a couple weeks, but playoffs will be starting pretty soon, and that's pretty awesome that the Red Sox are now in it. And they were kind of a back and forth for the last couple of months. You know, they started off with a really strong season, and now they kind of moved into a challenging few months. But you know, they got through it, and now they are in, so that is good. College football is going to be a pretty big week this week as well, and I'll go over a few of these bigger games. There's some dynamite games out there this week, and the top 25 teams. Let's go ahead and start them off. I'm going to start from the start from the top and work my way down. SMU number 24 is going to be playing Navy at 3:30, and these teams that are in the top, from 20 to 25. They're usually smaller name teams. They're teams that kind of sneak in there because someone else got a loss and so forth. So I don't usually take those guys very seriously either. Same thing, San Diego State was ranked 25th, and they're playing New Mexico. I mean, these are teams that just happen to sneak in there. San Diego State is 4-0, so I'm not looking for too much of an exciting game. It's on at 9 o'clock on Saturday as well, so nothing too big. You got that 24th ranked SMU playing Navy. Navy is looking kind of challenged this year with a 1-3 record to start off, and then the SMU Mustangs is 5-0, so definitely expect SMU to win that game. Navy, like I said, challenging season. It's definitely looking like a year that Army's going to beat Navy. Shout out to anyone that's in the Army that I know. But yeah, let's shoot over to the Arizona State game versus Stanford. Stanford, looking pretty strong last week after, a pretty big win over there against Oregon. So they're coming off of a really solid win. You can expect them to play their hearts out against Arizona State. This one's definitely a toss-up. You can't say anything about that except for it's a toss-up, just the way that Stanford can play. They're either on or they're off, right? And sounds to me like they should be on this week, depending upon how things go. I'm going to go ahead and skip over Texas. Yeah, let's just jump into it. Texas versus Oklahoma. Texas is ranked 21st versus Oklahoma, who is undefeated and ranked number 6. Texas Longhorns have had one loss this season, and that is it, and that was against Arkansas. SEC team, Texas wants to get into the SEC. They take a beating, not even a beating really, but they did get beat by Arkansas 40-21. They're going to be coming up and hopefully dominating this game is what they're hoping for anyway against Oklahoma. A lot of people are rooting against Oklahoma. They're saying this could be an upset, but I'm just not seeing it. I think that Oklahoma while they're having a hard time putting points up, while they're definitely not playing at the top of their game, while Spencer Rattler definitely needs to step it up and learn how to throw some passes and so forth. I mean, a 16-13 win against West Virginia, not much to talk about. Barely beating Kansas State, not much to talk about. Hardly even having, standing a shot against Nebraska as well, barely beating them. Like, they are not clearly a dominant team this year, but I really do think that Oklahoma's going to come out 7-0 after this week. But you can, don't ever count Texas out. People give them such a hard time, but they're a top team. They're gonna be able to do something pretty much every time. So let's go ahead and jump on down to the University of Florida versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is just a terrible team this season. They're 2-3, 62-0 against Georgia. They lost to Stanford. They lost to, or they barely beat the UConn Huskies. So, the UConn Huskies are probably, besides UMass, the worst team in the country. So, definitely. Oh, and they lost to East Tennessee State. So, you can't expect Florida to have a challenge against Vanderbilt at all. But I never put it past Florida. Look what happened to them last week against Kentucky, right? I worry. I do, because that's my team. You guys know that. Wake Forest, number 19 versus Syracuse. Wake Forest, 5-0, and they are looking solid this season. They are probably the best team in the ACC, believe it or not. I mean, they beat Louisville, they beat Virginia, they beat Florida State, which that's, pretty simple. But they're not just beating them, they're putting up, let's see, so they scored 42 points against Old Dominion, they put 41 points up against Norfolk State, 35 points up against Florida State, 37 points again against Virginia, and another 37 points against Louisville. So they're putting some offensive stuff on the board as well. Syracuse, can't ever count them out. They're a team that might come off with some good solid defense to be able to get some stops, so I wouldn't count them out at all. I'm going to go and skip past the Auburn-Georgia game, talk about that one. You know what? Screw it. Let's go ahead and talk about it now as well. You might as well, right? Georgia with that dominant defense. Literally 23 points scored on them all season. That's it. These guys, they are not messing around when it comes to what they're doing this year. They have two blowouts in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, Vanderbilt 62-0, putting up the points that they need as well. Blowing out Arkansas. South Carolina can hardly hold their own as well. So I am not putting it past them to beat Auburn. But my boy Chopper, number 18 Auburn, you just don't know what you're going to get with Auburn. You got Bo Nix out there. He might be playing... he might be on fire. He might not. Those first couple games against Akron, against Alabama State, yes, easy opponents, but and he's putting up 60-plus points. But look what happened when they played Georgia State, a team that clearly they should have just picked apart and won, and they barely won in the last minute or two. Is when they put up the last 12, or I think it was 14 points or so to win that game and put it away. So I'm not going to put anything past Auburn. You never know. That is the team that has luck on their side every season, it seems like. But it's been a while since they've had those crazy lucky plays. But Georgia Bulldogs, they are probably the best team in the country. The only way we'll know for sure is when and if they play Alabama in the national champion or in the SEC championship game. Then we'll know for sure if they are the real deal or not. Beating Arkansas last week. Arkansas has been winning some games. They were looking really good. So you never know. Georgia has to play Florida soon. Georgia has a pretty challenging schedule for the next 3 weeks. It'll be Auburn, then Kentucky, then Florida after a bye week. So see what happens there. But Georgia shouldn't have too much of a challenge with Auburn. But, Bo Nix might come out there for Auburn and just, figure things out. You never know what's going to happen with that guy for sure. Let's see. It looks like the next game, number 16, Kentucky. Oh, no, we have Mississippi State. Sorry. Mississippi State is Ole Miss. Sorry, not Mississippi State. Ole Miss, number 17 versus Arkansas. Arkansas is coming off that loss to Georgia. Ole Miss comes off this loss to Alabama. This is a big game, guys, for two teams that are just needing to win something. One of them is going to come out. Either Razorbacks going to be 5-1 or Ole Miss is going to be 4-1 after this week is over with. Or excuse me, one of them is going to, and one of them is going to have an extra loss as well. So one of those two is going to fall out of the top 25 most likely. And it depends upon how well they play. If it's a close match, they might, Arkansas might bump. If they win, they might bump up to the 10th ranked team. Ole Miss might bump down and so forth. But we'll see. I mean, Razorbacks, they're playing good all around. They're playing good football except for last week. Whereas Ole Miss, I mean, look, they're playing Alabama last week. You can't expect too much out of these guys, right? When they're playing Alabama. But whatever happens with Ole Miss, they're a pretty interesting team to watch. There's a lot going on with Matt Corral at the offensive on quarterback. He knows how to throw. He knows how to connect the ball. Very accurate. He has great receivers around him as well. And just see what happens with that game as well. But it'll be an interesting one. That's definitely a must-watch game this weekend for sure. Next one we're going to go over to Kentucky versus LSU. This is a East versus West game in the SEC. LSU Tigers is the team that they actually play. They don't play them every year in the West. They play them once, I believe it's every 10 years or so. Kentucky is looking on fire after that win against Florida. But if you really put up the numbers and you look at things the way that they really were in that game, Florida had 350 plus yards of offense. Kentucky had a little over 200 plus, 200 yards of offense. So I'm not really saying that Kentucky. I'm not saying that Kentucky is not a 5-0 team. They definitely are, but they're going to have to come out and play some football this week as well against LSU. LSU, not that good of a team this year. We're not going to say too much about them, but Kentucky definitely is most likely going to win this game. But then next week they have to play Georgia, and that is going to be a big SEC East game right there. Probably two undefeated teams at that point in the SEC East, and whichever one of those two wins that game is almost certainly going to be going into the SEC championship. I mean, Kentucky does not have that tough of a schedule after that. They have Mississippi State, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and that's it for the SEC games after that. So Kentucky, that's a must-win for them. But for Georgia, now it's a must-win for them as well, because Kentucky, after beating Georgia, even if Georgia goes undefeated the rest of the season, they have that loss to Kentucky, whereas Kentucky will most likely go undefeated at that point. So a must-win game for Georgia. That's going to be one challenging game, I'm sure. Let's move on over to a few other games as well. Number 14, Notre Dame plays Virginia Tech. That should be an easy win for Notre Dame, guys. Virginia Tech's playing decent ball this season. I wouldn't put it past them to put together an upset, but Notre Dame, they have a hard time scoring points, They do. They did not play their best ball last week when they lost against Cincinnati. They were just struggling, but Virginia Tech's a different beast than Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a great team. Virginia Tech's a good team right now at 3-1. So see what happens with that one also. Let's see, we got to find number 13 on here as well. That was Arkansas. So let's move on to number 15. Coastal Carolina plays Arkansas State. That should be an easy win for Coastal Carolina, guys. There's no reason why Coastal Carolina is going to have any sort of problem with them. They have a phenomenal quarterback who knows how to play some football. They have a phenomenal group of wide receivers and so forth that know what they're doing, but Grayson McCall is just a on-fire quarterback. They have a lot of excitement at that program as well, and I don't see any reason why Coastal Carolina is not going to win this game against the Arkansas State. I believe they're the Red Wolves. So got to jump on over to let's see, I see a number Michigan State Spartans versus Rutgers. Rutgers is a team that can pull something off. You never know what's going to happen with Rutgers, right? They will keep it close, but Michigan State is a pretty solid 5-0 team. I don't see anything that would stop them from beating Rutgers in this game as well. I would love to hear other people's opinions on this thing because with college football, the honest truth is you never know what's going to happen anyway, right? And, I mean, that is just the God-honest truth. Ohio State versus Maryland. Everyone called for Maryland being able to beat Iowa last week, and they just got blown out by Iowa. This is really going to determine. So if Maryland comes back and they're able to score like 35, 40 points against Ohio State, and Ohio State barely wins, then that would be interesting to see that Ohio State is probably not going to be able to compete with Iowa. But, each game is its own beast. You guys know that. And you never know what's going to happen in a college football game. But Ohio State versus Maryland. Ohio State's been playing some very good ball since they lost to Oregon. And I think that they will continue to play very good ball for the rest of the season until they get to that Michigan game. Then I really do think it's going to be a toss-up for the Buckeyes. We already talked about the number 6 Oklahoma Sooners, but we're going to hop over to the Cincinnati Bearcats, 4-0 right now. Number 5, they're playing the Temple Owls. The Bearcats are going to win out for the rest of the season. They don't have their strength of schedule is non-existent. The only ranked team that they're going to be playing this season is Notre Dame. They're going to stay at that 5th position. I don't know, even if they go undefeated, if they're going to stay in, if they're going to move into the top 4. A lot of people are saying, oh, look at this team. They're so good. They're solid. They're a team that can win. The only team that can even challenge them, maybe UCF, and UCF isn't looking that solid this season. SMU, they do have to play them, who, the Mustangs are ranked number 24 right now, and they have an undefeated, I believe they're undefeated. If not, they just lost one game. But the Bearcats don't have that much of a challenge for the rest of the season. You can expect them to you can expect them to win this game for sure. There's no reason why they're not going to. Penn State, Iowa State, Penn State and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Number 3 versus number 4, probably the biggest game of the week, even though College Game Day is not going to be there. They're going to be over there in Texas at the Red River Showdown. And Iowa, just a clearly solid team this season on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. But you know what? Penn State has a team that is stopping people. They started off as just a phenomenal defense, and they just kept it that way as well. People are not scoring a lot of points on them. The most points scored on them so far was Auburn when they scored 20, but Wisconsin was held to 10, Ball State was held to 13, Villanova 17, and Indiana couldn't even score on these guys. So you can just assume that these guys are going to be just fine going into this game. Sean Clifford, 17 for 33. Last week, you could expect him to put together a good showing next week as well, as long as he's healthy. They have a great group of rushing and great group of receiving players as well over there at Penn State. I don't see Penn State losing this game, but you know what? Iowa does have a pretty solid team as well. So that is definitely, if you flipped a quarter right now and let it land heads or tails, that's pretty much what this game is, man. It really is. Iowa just has, Spencer Petras, is a phenomenal quarterback. They have a group of guys rushing as well. 19 carries a game for Tyler Goodson. He can pass, he could run the whole 9 yards. These guys are just a strong core, but then also when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, people are not scoring that many points on them either. So Colorado State scores 14, Maryland scores 14, Kent State scores 7, Indiana scores 6 against Iowa, nothing against Penn State. These two teams are pretty darn even, guys. They are even. So you could guarantee I'll be sitting there in front of the TV at 4 p.m. watching that game this week. Let's move on over to the last couple games of the week. Alabama, does the number 2 team play? Yeah, so Georgia's playing Auburn. We already talked about that. So the last one that we got is Alabama versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M, I mean, my heart goes out to these people. I say that jokingly, but they started off with such high expectations, and a lot of people on Guys of the Bar Talking Sports called it differently. They really did. They were saying, yeah, probably not the team that they were last season. Probably not a top 25 team or a top 10 team. Probably going to have a couple of losses. I was like, no, they're bringing back a bunch of people on offense. Maybe they lost their quarterback, but they still have a good core of guys. Well, that's shown itself to be completely wrong. They are losing games. They lost to Mississippi State. They lost to Arkansas, can barely even score against Arkansas. They couldn't even score more than 10 points against Colorado in that win. These guys are struggling to score in the bigger games. Arkansas, Colorado, I mean, not even that big of a game, to be honest with you. Colorado now is, let me see what their total record is right now. They've won. Yeah, they've lost every game except for one, so they're 1-4 right now. Yeah, so this is a team that Texas couldn't even put up any points against. So you can expect Alabama to win this game handedly, almost as if they're playing, hate to say it, like Tennessee, which they do play Tennessee pretty soon as well. But Alabama's gonna have no problem, guys. Alabama is definitely the most dominant team in the country right now. Obviously, Georgia's right there as well, but I don't think Georgia has the offense that Alabama has. Georgia does not have Bryce Young. They don't have a lot of these, great receivers. They're having a hard time putting up points. Georgia's struggling with the quarterback. Was it JT Daniels out for a couple of weeks? So now you got Stetson Bennett, who is, Stetson Bennett the fourth. He's a great backup quarterback. Could probably be a starter at any other school as well. So, but Alabama is, definitely right there. They're number one for a reason. So look at this. So Alabama versus Texas A&M, no problem at all beating that team as well. Big week of NFL football coming as well, but I don't want to go into that too much. I do want to talk a little bit about Major League Baseball and the playoff hopes of these teams, just because MLB, this is their time of year, isn't it? This is the time of year when Major League Baseball is getting going. St. Louis Cardinals are playing the Los Angeles Dodgers in the first wild card game as well. Surprisingly, the Dodgers are a wild card team, but I mean that Western National League West is just solid. And then the next game after that will be the White Sox versus the Astros and Red Sox versus Rays, and those are all going to be some pretty good baseball games to watch. I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I do follow it during the playoffs, and with the Red Sox in, I'll be following it for years. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show. I don't want to take too much more of your time. There's no drinks flowing. There's nothing too fun going on around us right now. There's no glasses breaking behind us or whatever. It's just me doing a solo show, trying to put together something so that we can have some consistency with the guys at the bar talking sports. And I love doing the show, so I appreciate those that listen and keep on coming back every week for more guys at the bar talking sports. It's your boy Hanger looking for a beer. Actually, we're all looking for a beer. So if you want to buy the guys a beer, at Guys at the Bar Talking Sports on Venmo. That's it. Easy as drinking a beer. Three things you can do in order to help the guys out. And I know you want to help us out. Number one, join the Facebook group. If you've already joined the Facebook group, go ahead and invite a friend. All you gotta do is type in Guys at the Bar Talking Sports. You'll find the Facebook group there. Second thing you can do is subscribe to the show. And then the third thing you can do is give us a 5-star rating and review on whatever podcatcher you're listening through. You do that, you'll make these guys happy while we drink beer and talk sports.